Welcome to Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. This week, we've been dealing with non-stop rain and flooding brought about by Tropical Storm Dante, Typhoon Emong, and the enhanced southwest monsoon. And so we took a closer look at the impacts of the recent floods, from how leptospirosis can spread even without an open wound, to why flooding keeps happening in our cities, and how nature, like mangroves, can help protect us during storms. First up, I spoke with Dr. Ray Salinel Jr., an infectious disease specialist, to explain what leptospirosis is and how to stay safe.
Actually, yung leptospirosis po is a gram-negative infection which is brought about by leptospires. No, it's a screw-shaped organism that penetrates our skin, especially kung may mga bukas na sugat tayo dyan, that usually manifests with very common among mga lumulusong sa baha. Okay? Pero hindi lamang po doon, pwede rin po sa mga iba pang bagay na kung saan umiihi yung mga daga sa inyo pong lugar. Okay? Pwede yung mapunta sa inyong pagkain or sa bodega ng mga pagkain ninyo. Kaya dapat po mag-iingat po kayo. The portal of entry is usually the skin. Abraded skin o kaya po may lesion na skin, open wounds, ayan po. But then, pwede po maging portal of entry ang mata, ang bibig, ang tenga, especially po doon sa mga kabataan po natin ginagawang swimming pool, yung baha. Okay, pwede rin po makuha po doon. Galing po ito sa ihi ng daga. Okay, pero hindi lamang po sa daga po yan. Sa iba pa hong mga animals po ay pwede pong mag-harbor or pwede pong mag-stay yung pong bacteria na yan tapos iihi po nila. Nagkataon lang po na yan po ay napupunta sa mga tubig, lalo na po sa baha, kaya naman po very prominent po, especially ngayon pong tag-ulan at nagbabaha, yan pong leptospirosis.
Doc Ray, na-mention mo that hindi naman kailangan na open wound to be infected by leptospirosis. A lot of people feel that may myth kasi na kailangan open yung wound, kailangan nabusong sa baha to be able to get leptospirosis. That is probably, at least at this point, one of the more common ways to get it. Pero what are the most common ways or most common incidences na talagang umiiral yung leptospirosis?
Alam mo, nagpe-penetrate kasi yan sa mga mucous membranes po natin, sa mata, sa bibig, sa ilong. Pero ang pinaka-common kasi sa ating pong mga abraded skin. No? Yung po may mga sugat po na paa, binti, na lumulubog kayo sa baha. Yan po yung pinaka-common na way. Okay? Pero pwede rin po ito makuha. Sabi ko nga po, yung mga kabataan po, ginagawang swimming pool po yung baha na yan, pwede pong pumasok. Hindi natin may sugat sila or wala. Pwede pumasok sa mata, sa ilong, sa tenga po natin, sa bibig. Okay? Pwede pong pagmulan dyan ang leptospirosis.
You mentioned niyo po that aside from rats, there are other animals that can carry leptospirosis, yung bacteria ng leptospirosis. What other animals are those?
Well, alam niyo sa Pilipinas lang po, ang alam po ninyo ay daga, pero alam mo po sa Western Hemisphere, diyan po ay pwede po squirrels, yung dogs, yung cats, yung cows, okay? Lahat po yan ay pwede pong pamugaran ng pong leptospirosis.
Well, in terms of protection, Doc, syempre, especially dahil medyo bumabaha dito sa Metro Manila and wherever else, people try to avoid flooded areas but minsan cannot avoid it. How can they avoid being infected by leptospirosis?
Number one, if you have available bota, no? Yung pong, yan po isa sa pagbibigay sa inyo ng proteksyon. Number one. Number two, kung kayo naman po ay walang bota pero talagang wala kayong choice, pag uwi nyo ng bahay, baha na pala. Wala kayong choice kundi lumusong, you can, as soon as you reach your house, clean your legs and yung feet po niyo with soap and water and then check for any kind of mga wounds po dyan. And then kung kayo po mag-manifest ng flu-like symptoms after how many days, might as well go to your nearest doctor.
What are the symptoms, Doc? Na-mention mo yung flu-like symptoms. What are the other early signs of leptospirosis?
That's the problem with rainy diseases, no? Pwede po kasi magkakamukha yung kailan pong mga papakita, masakit ang ulo, masakit ang kalamnan, masakit ang lalamunan, para pong masakit yung mga back muscles, mga calf muscles, mga back muscles, mga big muscles, okay? Tapos para pong may trangkaso talaga, namumula yung mga mata, and then napapansin lang nila na parang iba na yung kulay ng ihi, naninilaw na sila, so komplikado na pala yung mga ganong klaseng situation.
When we talk about yung treatment plan for those who are infected with leptospirosis, how does that look like, Doc?
Pag kayo po ay libre naman po ang doxycycline, which is a prophylaxis for leptospirosis. Kung kayo po ay depende po no sa situation, kung kayo po ay nalusong sa baha, meron kayong bukas na wound, you might as well go to your nearest health center. Libre po yung doxycycline. Penicillin is the drug of choice for leptospirosis, pero kung talagang complicated na buong case, you need to be in the hospital for monitoring.
Doc, for those wondering, of course, okay, so lumusong ka sa baha, hindi sila sigurado kung may leptospirosis sila. Would you recommend that they do preventively seek medical assistance when it comes to leptospirosis, or at least in fear for leptospirosis?
You have to go to the nearest health center po para humingi po ng doxycycline prophylaxis. Kailangan unahan nyo na po na makainom ng doxycycline.
Doc, your message to those who unfortunately are going to be exposed to different floods to try and make sure na they stay safe and healthy, especially during yung rainy season po natin.
Kailangan po tayo mag-ingat po. Marami po mga sakit na pwede natin makuha ngayon pong tag-ulan. Isa na po rito yung leptospirosis. Kung kayo po yung may bota, no? May bota po kayo, protection po sa inyo pong paa, you might as well get one of those. And then kung talagang wala kayong choice, nakaalis kayo ng bahay na wala namang ulan, pagbalik nyo, baha na po sa inyong lugar, maglinis po kagad ang paa ng sabon na tubig at mag-ingat po, inom kayo ng maraming water, and you have to ask or let the barangay captain clean the drainage in your area para maiwasan po yung mga baha.
Up next, Dr. Mahar Lagmay will talk about the real causes of flooding and how better planning and science can help us prepare for the next big one. Stay with us. This is Weather HQ. Welcome back. You're still watching Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Parts of Metro Manila have been underwater again due to days of heavy monsoon rain, causing traffic, commuter struggles, and more flood worries. To understand why this keeps happening, here's my interview with Project NOAA Executive Director, Dr. Mahar Lagmay.
Yeah, we have that website called Project NOAA. Well, it used to be called Project NOAA, but it's now part of the UP NOAA Center, which is the core component of the UP Resilience Institute. That website can be found at noaa.up.edu.ph. And the first page, you would see, it says there, know your hazards. So the idea there is before a severe weather event happens, people are already aware if their area is flood prone or not. The idea of showing these maps is actually about getting the people to find the safest place to go to in case Pag-asa or government like NDRMC, OCD announces that there's imminent danger. Mm-hmm. But the first step really is to find out whether that area that you live in, or the school where your boy or daughter goes to, or the office of your husband is a dangerous area or not. That awareness is very important. And the awareness also of the place where it is safer or the safest in that community is also important, because you would like to know where to go in case there's danger. Mm-hmm. That's the idea behind Know Your Neighborhood. There are other features there, such as landslide hazard maps, as well as storm surge hazard maps. Hazards that are related to hydrometeorological hazards, or in simple terms, severe weather.
Mm-hmm. Well, Doc, for those wondering, saan po nanggagaling yung data? Is it crowdsourced? Is it something that is an interagency effort in terms of gathering the appropriate data, gathering all of the numbers when it comes to the floods especially?
Yeah, the data, or most of the data, was generated by Project NOAA, which was funded by government to the tune of about 6.4 billion pesos. That was funded by Congress. And there were other projects, I think 21 projects underneath the program, which is called Project NOAA. One of them was the microsat, which eventually became the Philippine Space Agency. Now, there's a project there which involved the flying of planes that would create the detailed topography of the entire Philippines, on which we simulated hazard maps to generate high-resolution hazard maps where you can see detail up to the barangay level. And we did that for not just for floods, for landslides, and also for storm surges. And among other things, sensors were also deployed to give near real-time data. So it's really a product of a lot of things that we have worked on, that the Philippines has worked on over the past, I think, 12 years. And it's all displayed there in that website. So please visit it because there's a lot of information there.
Well, yes, so we're showing different clips of a while ago from Project NOAA if you visit the website. And of course, when we take a look at the flood maps that we're actually going to show in just a bit, once we say Quezon City, for example, you can see there the different types of hazards there, including, if I'm not mistaken, there's also a legend key to show which spots are more flood prone compared to the others. So we go back to the almost age-old question dito sa Pilipinas, especially in Metro Manila, Doc. What are the most common causes for flooding, especially in the metro area, na na-observe po ninyo working with NOAA?
Okay, there are many causes of flooding or types of flooding, by the way. There's coastal flooding, there's flooding that occurs near rivers because of heavy rainfall or swelling of the rivers. And among other things, subsidence causes flooding as well. The main cause of flooding in Metro Manila is because of extreme rain. No? We have to have a lot of rain delivered over a short span of time for the floods to be able to accumulate or to be generated.
Yeah.
Now, rain is the most important, and it's a natural process. It's been happening ever since. Now, we have done so many things to aggravate the problem. Like, for example, we put concrete or pave the roads. When we pave the roads, there's lack of infiltration. Normally, the soil absorbs the water. We have put a lot of garbage in drainage channels. We have cut the trees, a lot of trees in the forests. Therefore, the mountains cannot absorb that much water anymore. And these are aggravating factors that make floods worse. And now, Metro Manila is an urban jungle full of concrete. Of course, the waterways that used to be the streams, the creeks, yung mga sapa na tinatawag sa Tagalog, the rivers, don't have that enough capacity compared to before. I'm not saying that they don't have capacity. They can still carry or convey water down to Manila Bay, but it has delayed the flow of water. And when there's delay, just like in traffic, they stay there or they pond, and that is called as a flood.
When you take, you mentioned that there is still capacity naturally, especially sa mga sapa, mga waterway, to funnel water away from the urban metro and of course the Manila Bay. But the question also is are there any interventions that actually have worked or have been effective that we've seen significant changes throughout the time the Project NOAA has been active that has actually contributed positively to our floodwater management?
Well, the effects of Project NOAA has not really been yet on the losses and damages inflicted by floods. The benefit of Project NOAA was more on the reduction of fatalities. So it's not just NOAA, it's a collective effort, but we believe, based on counterfactual evidence, that NOAA contributed a lot. Before, we used to have about 1,000 to 1,250 deaths on average per year. Since 2014, wherein there was a lot of activities and policies that were implemented, it was reduced, that number, from 1,000 above to 250 deaths per year. Now, if we look at the what do you call this? The loss and damages, it has remained the same, more or less 50 billion pesos a year on average.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because you can move people, but you cannot move the settlements. You cannot move. That is more long term, right? It does not happen overnight. It doesn't even happen over the span of 5 years. Considering the extent of the problem, it's difficult to do that. What I can say, though, in Metro Manila is that in Quezon City, the local government unit hired Project NOAA, or the University of the Philippines, to do the drainage master plan. And there were simulations that were made for the drainage flow and for the surface flow. They were combined, identifying the places where interventions could be best, including the detention basins, retention basins, the preservation of these big tracts of land like parks and wildlife, areas in UP that could act as temporary holding basins to be released, the water to be released after the rainfall event. Unfortunately, it takes time, right? For you to be able to create these pools, these detention basins underneath basketball courts.
Yeah.
It takes time, the construction. So we just finished that drainage master plan, and hopefully it will reduce, not totally eradicate, but reduce. There were other recommendations, such as settlements along floodplains. So it's not just Marikina River and Pasig River and San Juan River that is the problem, because there are so many other creeks and streams, as you can see from that image, and it's like branches of trees going everywhere, right? All of these creeks and streams swell as well. They can be overwhelmed, and when they get overwhelmed, it spills onto the floodplains. And those floodplains are also occupied by settlements, as you can see there. You can zoom it some more, please. You can zoom it some more, and you can see the settlements on top of floodplains. Those are the areas that are flooded. Now, streets, that's the normal condition of the river. You can see the blue line, but when you click on the flood during a heavy rainfall event, you see it swells and it encroaches on settlements. That is difficult to fix, right? Because how would you get all of those people out of those areas?
Doc, you mentioned...
That's a long-term solution. And that's the same for roads. Whenever the roads intersect these creeks, the water would like to cross the road. But if it's too swollen and there's a road there, naturally the road would get flooded because it cannot pass underneath the road. When it's swollen, it must pass over the road to be able to cross the road.
Doc, you mentioned you're started working with Quezon City LGU when it comes to drainage and, of course, making your recommendations. Yes, it will take time. But when you take a look at the overall state ng drainage natin, would you say it's outdated, or how would you describe yung current state ng drainage dito sa Metro Manila? Of course, varying from different LGU.
That is also correct. The drainage size, capacity is too low. The drainage system is not enough. We need to expand it to be able to accommodate the larger flood events. Remember that with climate change, those rare events that happen only once every 100 years happen now more frequently. Instead of once every 100 years, they happen now once every 10 years or once every 5 years. Remember, we had floods like Ondoy, which is a one every 180-year event. And then we had Habagat 2012. We had Habagat 2013. We had Habagat 2014. It made Marikina River swell and it flooded Metro Manila. We had Habagat in 2018. We had Ulysses in 2020. We had Habagat because of Karina last year. It made Marikina River swell as well. And all of these events happen more frequently now. And therefore, floods become more frequent as well. The old drainage system, which used to only accommodate smaller events most of the time, they are not enough now because we're experiencing more frequent, larger floods.
Up next, find out how mangroves help protect us during storms and why cutting them down puts millions at risk. Oceana's attorney Rose Liza Aisma Osorio explains when Weather HQ returns. Hello there, you're still watching Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Mangroves may look simple, but they're one of the strongest natural barriers against flooding, storm surges, and climate change. Now, to explain why we need to protect them now more than ever, here's my interview with Oceana Philippines Acting VP, Attorney Rose Liza Aisma Osorio.
Mangrove ecosystems, yung mga mangroves natin, no, marami tayong species of mangroves that fortunately for the Philippines, these are crucial for many coastal communities because they provide not only food, livelihood, but also protection against coastal hazards. And alam naman natin, no, Philippines is often visited by tropical cyclones. The July is known as the month of the rainy season in the Philippines. And even this week, we have seen heavy rains and continuously flooded homes and streets in Metro Manila, bringing it to a virtual standstill with government work and classes suspended in the last, 4 or 5 days. So, it's important for us to realize that mangroves offer actually sustainable and cost-efficient ways for us to protect ourselves from these hazards and natural hazards and disasters. Because mangroves play an essential role in, mitigating the impacts of this extreme weather conditions such as coastal flooding and also ensuring protection against storm surge.
Well, storm surge is one of the bigger topics, especially very timely sa panahon ngayon. When we talk about science-based results, real-life stories, we actually have a few. Surigao del Norte comes to mind. What can we share from Surigao del Norte that can show us ito yung ginagawa ng mga mangrove forests, especially during storm surges and typhoons?
Yes, at the height of Typhoon Odette, it was a super typhoon, no? And in Surigao, particularly in the municipality of Del Carmen in Siargao Island, they were actually protected by the mangrove forest, extensive coastal greenbelt of mangroves and beach forests from the adverse impacts of that extreme weather condition, the super typhoon. So many lives were saved, their homes, although they were because of the strong winds they were affected, but no lives were lost, because essentially the mangroves gave them a protective cover against the storm surge and other impacts of that super typhoon.
I want to talk about how mangroves are also in terms of yung biodiversity natin, in terms of its impact to nature. It actually houses different types of marine life. Napaka-rich yung ecosystem,
Yes.
especially with mangrove forests. Just can you give us an idea of just how rich that ecosystem is?
Yeah, so as you note, mangroves are the nursery areas for our fisheries and aquatic resources. So doon talaga lumalaki yung ating mga isda, doon pinapanganak at lumalaki before they migrate towards our seagrasses and coral reefs. Kaya in the Philippines, kompleto tayo in those tatlong ecosystems kasi we're considered a tropical powerhouse. And so yun nga, with mangroves, yung connectivity natin with the different ecosystems are very important kasi nga it's biodiverse and maraming mga resources that are living there as shown in the video, maraming lumalaki dyan, nagiging nursery areas yan ng mga maliliit na isda, and so it also becomes a source of food for our coastal communities. Doon nakukuha yung mga mga aquatic resources na kinakain natin like crabs, mangrove crabs and all the other things that we have we can use for our day-to-day food.
For those confused kung anong pinapakita natin ngayon, that is the mangrove trees protecting the residents, of course, from storm surges and as we mentioned a while ago. But even though, I think we've emphasized here, Attorney, na napaka-importante yung biodiversity that it provides, the ecosystem it provides, even the protection. But then, we've nearly lost half of our mangrove forests in the last century. Bakit po?
Yeah, despite its critical importance nga, I agree with you, no? We have still lost half of our mangrove cover in the country because mangroves remain undervalued and severely threatened pa rin. So, our forests, this mangrove forest, face a multitude of challenges from all fronts. Meron na yung deforestation, yung reclamation, yung pollution, and of course, conversion of mangroves to fish ponds, and of course, climate change and associated sea level rise in relation to climate change. So, ito po yung mga nangyayari na hindi natin bina-value so much ang ating mga mangroves. Kaya it's currently severely threatened pa rin.
I mean, there are actually some mangrove forests in more urban areas. The Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park also comes to mind when it comes to that. Pero you mentioned the threats there. Just what's at stake if we keep on losing yung remaining forests natin?
It's a threat to our food security, yung unang-una, no? Kasi yun nga, the Philippines is an archipelagic country where country surrounded by islands, and on these islands, we have many coastal communities of population living on the coasts, and these coastal communities are directly dependent on the resources, that they find in our coastal ecosystems, such as mangroves and coral reefs. And so kung mawala po yung ating mga mangroves, medyo maapektuhan po yung productivity ng ating isda, ng ating mga source ng pagkain natin. And so that's I think, as you mentioned, yung Las Piñas, ito nga yung last remaining mangrove forest natin. Isa din na mawawala natin is yung impact niya on, globally, kasi nasa East Australia flyway siya ng ating mga migratory birds. So, may role yan in terms of connectivity ng iba't ibang mga bansa, hindi lang sa loob ng bansa natin, no? So, but outside our countries. And so, kung mawawala po ito, marami po talagang mawawala sa ating lahat.
Attorney, before we let you go, first of all, yung mangroves are natural carbon sinks. It's one of the most important weapons we have against climate change. But Oceana's also pushing for the National Coastal Greenbelt Act. Just what exactly is this law that you're trying to push? And of course, what impact do you hope it has?
Yeah, for the goal of this law is to secure the restoration and preservation of mangroves and beach forests to combat yung mga other adverse effects of climate change. Mangroves are known to be the most efficient in terms of absorbing yung carbon sequestration potential niya ay malakas talaga. So, in terms of our campaign, we aim that the national government will pass a law that will establish coastal greenbelt zones in the country, and para itong coastal greenbelt zones, based on studies, but based on science, if we have 100-meter belt of coastal greenbelt composed of mangroves and beach forests, it will help alleviate or mitigate the impacts of storm surge by as much as 60%. So yung minimum requirement talaga is 100 meters coastal greenbelt. So yun ang gusto namin ma-institutionalize through a national law, and then and help protect, and institutionalize a system of restoring our mangroves and beach forests para we will be able to protect ourselves, and the benefits ultimately that we will get both from the from the community, from the ends of the side of the community that rely on these vital resources, and on the environment, will be, will be felt, by everyone. And I think this is essential for our not only sustainability of our resources but survival.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Weather HQ. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Paolo del Rosario. See you again next week right here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.